Hey, everybody. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all of that business.
A couple days away from Christmas.
I know, I can't believe it. It's just, everything's going so fast.
Yeah, gotta glaze that ham.
Was that a euphemism?
No, I got a ham down there. I gotta glaze it.
No, I'm just teasing. The way you just kind of said it with no context. Man, gotta glaze that ham. I was like, ooh, promise? All right, so yeah. yeah, you gotta do that.
You're not calling yourself a piece of pig, are you?
Well, I don't know. Gotta glaze that ham.
Never heard of that.
I'm just making it up, Tom. It's like, I guess the word glaze just kind of struck me as funny, yeah. So it's like, you know what I mean. But yeah, so this, I actually hadn't planned on doing this, but we are going to do a double feature just because I ended up watching 2 random Christmas movies last night. Because I watched the first one and then it was like still really early, and then it suggested another one. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I'll just watch this one too because I hadn't seen this one. Now, I'm going to say right out the gate, okay, so the first one we're going to talk about is called Silent Night, Bloody Night. Not to be confused with Silent Night, Deadly Night, which is a totally different movie. It was a little bit later. Now, this one is kind of interesting for a lot of reasons. This one, it's kind of like a slasher, but it came out in 1972. It was actually made in 1970, I think, is when they shot it. Which is like several years before Black Christmas, which is kind of considered the first holiday slasher. It's still after Bay of Blood. I think that came out in 1970 or 1971. Which I kind of feel like was probably the first slasher. But this has a lot of the slasher tropes, including like the killer POVs and stuff like that. And it was co-written, and I didn't know this until I looked it up later, by Jeffrey Konvitz, who is the same guy that did the novel and the screenplay of The Sentinel, which I just did over my Scare Salon channel. That was the last video I did with like a book-movie comparison, because I always really liked The Sentinel. That 70s movie, and I read the novel and did a comparison. So this is the same guy. I'm going to say, though, if you want to watch this movie, don't make the mistake that I made and watch the version that's on Amazon Prime. Like, it's free on Amazon Prime, because it looks like ass. It's totally dark. It's in the 4:3 aspect ratio. It's literally so dark that you can barely see what's going on most of the time. I looked later... Like, after I'd watched it, I'm like, man, that looked, like, really shitty. I looked later, and somebody uploaded a much better copy of it onto YouTube. So you can, because it's in the public domain, because they forgot to register the copyright, I guess, kind of like Night of the Living Dead. So if you want to watch it, and also the Amazon Prime version has some of the gore cut out. So there's that, too. So if you do want to watch it, watch the version that's on YouTube for free. It looks much better. Because I actually kind of scrolled through and I was like, oh, well, it would have been nice to see some of that stuff, because when I watched it last night, I couldn't see what was going on most of the time because it was like so murky looking. So I'm guessing the Amazon Prime, they didn't get like the restored version. And the version on YouTube is restored. So yeah, like I said, this is kind of interesting in the fact that, I mean, Mary Woronov is in this, and she was kind of like friends with Andy Warhol, so I kind of feel like there was a lot of Andy Warhol hangers-on kind of in the background, like Candy Darling and stuff, playing some of the inmates at this asylum. I didn't love this.
No, I didn't like it.
It's kind of...
thought it was kind of stale.
Well, the thing, I think I would have liked it better if I could have seen what was going on most of the time. It had like a really interesting premise, and it was like kind of weird, and it had that really creepy early 70s vibe, that a lot of movies from that time period have.
It's like crime scene photos.
Yeah, like I shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah, like you're actually watching the stuff.
So which is really like effective, and it works really well. So it did have that kind of spooky vibe to it. But I don't know. I thought it's not long. It's only like 82 minutes. But it seemed like it kind of dragged. Like I said, it might have been better if I had watched the well-lit version on YouTube so I could actually see what was going on, because a lot of times I couldn't. But I don't know. You know what I mean? I didn't love it. I did like some of it. I thought it was an interesting idea.
It started off with a dude running out of the house on fire. It was kind of cool. I thought it was going to pull me into the movie on the back of that, but it didn't, actually. The longer it went on, the less interested I got in it. And that was just... no, that's not really all I can say about it. Although I can see how it's probably an important movie for when it came out. Like it was kind of starting the slasher type.
Yeah, which
thing.
There really wasn't a lot of movies like this out
I would
at
call
this time
this a
period.
slasher.
Yeah, I mean, I would too.
Yeah.
It's generally considered a proto-slasher.
Yeah.
But it has all. I mean, people get axe murdered, and there's a killer going around like whispering into the phone and shit like that. It's very.
It was a good idea at the time, and they tried to do a good job on it with such a limited budget. But I just didn't enjoy it that much. There are so many better ones. What was that other real old slasher one that we saw a while back where dude was cutting big pieces out of people and had a lot of gore in it? I think it was a southern movie. Wasn't it shot in the South somewhere?
I'm not entirely sure which one you're talking about.
Oh shit, that one was a lot better.
Yeah, like I said, I kind of like the vibe of this one, and I kind of like the idea of it. I just think the kind of execution was a little bit lacking. I did find it very amusing though. John Carradine is in this, and I don't know if he didn't want a speaking role, or something. But he's mute in this movie. I guess they explain at some point that he had like his larynx removed or something like that, presumably from smoking. So when you first see him in the film, he's like in this meeting. He's like runs the local newspaper or something in this town. And whenever somebody says something to him, like instead of answering, he has like one of those little hotel bells and he just dings it.
Yeah.
And it's like, so every time he did that, it made me laugh. And then, but then like later on, because I was like, is he just doing that because he's a weirdo? But then like later on they said, oh, he can't talk because he was like writing notes and stuff like that. But I just thought that was so funny that he would just go, ding, like whatever. And I'm like, what does that mean? Yes, no? I don't really know. But yeah, so I thought that was funny. So, okay, so the story behind this is that this was actually released by Cannon Films back in 1972. It was released under a couple different titles as well. It's mostly known as Silent Night, Bloody Night.
This is an early Cannon film.
Nowadays, yeah. And it is vaguely a Christmas movie, and it does take place on Christmas Eve, like a long time ago, and then takes place on Christmas Eve, like now, like in somebody's wrapping presents and stuff like that.
Angle.
So, yeah, well, that's the reason why I ended up watching it, because it is kind of like a Christmas movie. It's not super Christmas heavy. But you know what I mean. I kind of feel like this is the kind of movie where
it's a slasher. If it does.
It is, yeah. I mean, some of the reviews of it at the time, it kind of got ignored at the time. It wasn't really. I mean, they made it for like less than $300,000, so you know it's clearly very low budget. But it kind of just came and went. But I think like over the years, some horror fans really got into it, saying it was kind of like a hidden gem, and it was just kind of like, here's this, you know, proto-slasher that came out a couple years before Black Christmas and all this other kind of stuff. But some contemporary reviewers kind of said the same thing that we said. It's, you know, it's kind of boring and shit like that. Like I said, even though it's only 82 minutes, it seemed like a lot longer because it seemed like there was a lot of filler. But I really did like the idea behind it. It was like a cool idea. It's not like super creative or anything. It's basically like a pretty standard holiday slasher kind of thing. But what it is so back in 1950, somebody who you presume is this dude named Wilford Butler, rushes out of the house on fire. You find out later, spoiler alert, that wasn't really him. But that's who you think it is. So he's this guy, and he has this big mansion. I think it's in Massachusetts somewhere. And he's left this mansion to his son, Jeffrey. And then we jump ahead like 20 years. And then in 1970, there's this lawyer and his mistress, who's also his assistant, I guess. And they come to this dinky-ass little town because the grandson, who he has never met, wants to sell the house. And all the people in town are super weird, and they are like sitting there. There's like the switchboard lady and the mayor and the sheriff and all this other stuff, and they're looking at this lawyer like, you know, what the fuck, bro? And like I said, John Carradine is there ringing the bell or whatever, like every time somebody says something. And so they were like, they don't want to sell the house to an outsider or something like that. So the lawyer is like, okay, well, you know, the grandson says he'll take $50,000 in cash. You know, if you guys can come up with that, and we'll sell it, and it'll all be fine, and you guys can have it. And so the town agrees to do that. So they kind of go all and get the money and stuff like that. However, it so happens that somebody is out at this house calling all of these people in town with this creepy voice and basically trying to lure them to the house. It sounds like a man's voice at first, but then they're calling themselves Mary Ann. You know what I mean? So it's very much like so it's kind of like Black Christmas in that way, with like the Billy phone calls and everything. So they're calling people and, you know, luring people out there. And like dumbasses, they're all like, hey, I just got a creepy phone call to say to come out to the house. I think I'll do that. You know what I mean? Which normal people would not do that. So, well, the lawyer and the mistress, okay, so this was really weird because the lawyer and the mistress, they were like huge characters, like in the first 15 minutes of the movie. So I thought the lawyer was going to be like the main character because they were with him for like a long time. Because remember what a big deal that was? Like at the beginning, like he was like the main character. And then him and the mistress get like axe murdered. Like 15 minutes into the movie? Something like that. I was like, oh, there goes that guy. I thought he was like the main guy. But I guess not. So then like other people, like the grandson, Jeffrey, who owns the house, he shows up. And they kind of try to make it seem like he's the killer, because like as soon as he shows up and he's kind of sketchy and, you know, he's the one doing all the killing. But like as it goes on, it becomes clear that he can't be the one doing the killing because he's like at a different place because the killings are going on at the house. So all of these people, like the switchboard lady and the sheriff and everything like that, get lured out to the house kind of one by one, and then they all get murdered. Like a lot of them have their hands cut off, but I'm not really sure if they explained the significance of that. You know, like John Carradine had his hands cut off, and I'm pretty sure that the switchboard lady had her hands cut off. But I don't know if they explained, like, why the killer was doing that. And what they were trying to do
they probably
was...
forgot to explain it.
Maybe they didn't. I don't really know. Because I know that one of the actors, I think the actor, one of the older actors was, like, real sick, and they had to, like, reshoot the ending or, like, re-edit it. Because the director was like, well, that wasn't really how we had intended to end the movie, but because the dude was sick, we had to, like, shoot around it and all this other kind of stuff. So maybe it wasn't as clear as... And I mean, maybe they did say it and I just didn't notice. Yeah. But, yeah, so they were cutting off hands and cutting up people with axes and various other things. And it turns out, I mean, the story behind it is kind of too convoluted to get into. But there was a thing where Jeffrey's mom, who he thought was dead, she was actually raped when she was 15... and had him, like, as a baby. And then he got sent away and told that she was dead.
So he was a rape baby.
Yeah, okay. But he got sent away. He didn't know that. So, but then it turned out that her dad was the one that had raped her. So Jeffrey's dad was also his grandpa. Mm-hmm. Okay? So everybody thought that the dad was dead, Wilford, because they thought that that was him, like, running out the house, like, on fire at the beginning. But it turned out that that was just some other dude that he'd set on fire, like, to fake his own death. And then he went and checked himself into a mental asylum. Because then, like, he ran his house as a mental asylum for a while, like, with his daughter there. Like, he kept her locked up. And then for some reason, he had all of these inmates there. And then one day, I can't even remember what the rationale was, but he's just like, fuck it, I'm going to let all these people go. Like, he let them all out. And it didn't go well. And his daughter ended up getting killed, Jeffrey's mom. And then all of the crazy people that got out, I guess some of them just went someplace else, but it's led you find out later that all of the people that run the town, like the newspaper guy, John Carradine, and the sheriff and all of that, were inmates at the asylum. And they just, like, escaped and were like, hey, we're taking over the town. It's the crazy people town now. You know what I mean? So that's why he was going and killing everybody. Didn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe if I watched it again. Yeah. But I was just kind of like, wait, what? So it's just kind of like, after I read the Wikipedia synopsis, I'm like, okay, it makes a little bit more sense now. But even Mary Woronov has been, because, you know, kind of one of her, fairly early films, I guess. But, and she's great in this. I mean, she's the best part of it, I think. I always really liked her. But, she's kind of said later that she's like, this was a terrible shoot because the weather was freezing cold and they all slept in this house where they were shooting and it was like they didn't have any heat and all this other kind of shit. And she didn't really like how the final film came out. She's like, because she's like, we got this weird script and we didn't really know. And she's like, and I saw the final film and I feel like you can't really tell what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's convoluted.
It's a little bit convoluted. I think, like, if you see it a couple times, or like I said, if you go read the Wikipedia plot synopsis, that gives, like, a pretty good breakdown of what's going on in the movie.
They unnecessarily convoluted it to fill the movie out, if you ask me. To make, you know, to
make it longer.
Make it longer.
And it's really, and it's still not that long.
Right. And see, I, you know, the first slasher I remember seeing as a kid was Friday the 13th, Part 1. And I liked that movie. And then Part 2 even fucked me up even more. And then 3. I didn't even see Halloween, the first Halloween, until a long time after it came out. I saw Halloween 3 first, Season of the Witch. But there's something about the early slashers I grew up with, you know what I mean, watching early Friday the 13th movies. It kind of, I guess it kind of tainted me in a certain way when it came to other slashers. If you look at those movies, they're very efficient. Really, the scenes, all they are is a setup for the fucking kill scene. And it's just that, it's almost kind of like a formula over and over again. They're very efficient. This movie's not like that at all. It's just going all over the place. But there was just something about the Friday the 13th ones that kept you watching it. When it would kind of suck you into it.
The boobies helped, I'm sure.
Yeah, they knew exactly what they were doing. They knew what they were doing. They were edited very well. And they were kind of planned out. And it was very efficient. They didn't really beat around the bush too much. But they still, they let you know who the characters were. You had the guy in the wheelchair, and you had the nerdy guy, and you had the hot girl, and then you had the slutty couple or whatever. You knew they were all kind of like stereotypes. They didn't really have to have a big complicated story because they were just in the story to get killed. And really, you knew only one of the girls was going to survive. Although it actually ended up being where eventually it was just a little boy that survived. What was that, in 4?
Yeah.
Or for 3? Yeah.
Well, and his older sister?
Yeah.
Aunt? Who the fuck was that?
Yeah.
I can't remember now.
Yeah. So they just kind of... this movie seems very messy compared to Friday the 13th.
Yeah, it's a little experimental, I guess. It's kind of weirdly, it's more of an art house movie, and I don't know if that was done on purpose. But it very well might have been, because like I said, a lot of the people that were involved in this movie were kind of in the Andy Warhol, like the factory contingent. So they very well could have been making something a little more arty. It's not super arty-farty, like it's fairly easy to follow, but like I said, it's real convoluted. The story is kind of convoluted, and you really have to kind of pay attention to what everybody's saying and what's going on. And like I said, the version I watched was so dark that I couldn't even tell what was going on most of the time. So I'm glad that I went back and watched it just I just kind of scraped through it on YouTube so I could see, and I was like, oh wow, it actually does have lights.
Although there was a lot of weird experimental slasher horror type movies in the 70s that you really don't, I had never heard of them. And then you showed me one of them, and I was like, God damn, that existed then? What was the one about the damn cult where I think they were cannibals too, remember? It's early 70s. You remember which one I'm talking about?
No.
It was like a cult.
I don't remember which one you're talking about.
And they just showed nothing but just sacrifices and murder scenes one after the other. And I think there was cannibalism involved in it. I would say that was just another one from the 70s. I can't remember the name. You showed it to me.
I mean, all I can think of, think of maybe Herschel Gordon Lewis movies from the 60s, like Blood Feast and stuff
Blood
like
Feast.
that. Okay, that was 60s.
60s. Okay,
that was 1965, 1964, something like that.
That was a cult, right?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It was mostly one guy.
Yeah.
That was making the Feast of Isis, the Feast of
Yeah. That was it. I'm pretty sure that was the name of it.
Something like that. Yeah, I mean, H.G. Lewis, like I said, he's the godfather of splatter.
Yeah, well, didn't there's this splatter. They were cutting some girl up, and she wasn't really hardly reacting to it.
Yeah,
remember that was
like I said, they were super low budget.
Yeah, it made it kind of.
They look terrible. I mean, they look terrible, but they're actually really fun. And like I said, going back to the '60s, it's kind of crazy that Blood Feast came out only a few years after Psycho. It's completely different. But
Blood Feast, that's what I think.
Just kind of came way the fuck out of nowhere.
Yeah, and that was '60s. It wasn't even '70s.
Yeah, that
I thought
was
it was
60s.
early '70s. But
no, that's I think it was 1964 or 1965, something like that.
Yeah. Well, Blood Feast. This has got nothing on Blood Feast. Blood Feast is a lot better.
I was gonna say because Phantom just said this probably inspired Black Christmas. It probably did because it does have a few similarities. As in, it's set at the holiday. Like I said, it's not super holiday specific. They just make a mention that shit happened on Christmas Eve. And like I said, I think you see Mary Warnoff wrapping a present at some point, and she looks out the window. But so it's not, it's not super Christmas heavy. But it does have the murderer calling with the weird voice trope, before they kill people. So they do have that. I'm not really sure if that's... I mean, that might have been a thing prior to this movie. But so it does have that. But I mean, Black Christmas is ages better than this one. You know what movie this kind of reminded me of a little bit? Although the movie that I'm about to say like is also a lot better than this one is Let's Scare Jessica to Death.
That
like,
sounds familiar.
That's also from the early 70s. Yeah. And that was also very weird and experimental and kind of like, what the fuck? But I feel like that one was a lot more effective than this one, even though it gives me the same vibe. This gave me the same vibe as that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. But like I said, I feel like I can see both sides of the thing because like I said, I've seen some like horror sites and stuff like that said, oh man, this is like a hidden gem, it's a proto-slasher, all this other stuff, and I can totally see that. Like if you're in the right mood for this, then you know this might be like just might scratch that itch. I don't know, like I said, it's kind of hard for me to say now because my experience of watching it was so tainted by how shitty it looked, and now I'm kind of mad because I wish that I had watched it like a better copy of it, but I didn't know it was Amazon Prime, you know, so I just figured
they'd have the best
that they would have a good copy of it, and they don't. It's just it looks really, really shitty, and the version on YouTube looks much, much better. So, because I kind of feel like a lot of times I was just getting frustrated because it's like the screen was like almost completely dark and I couldn't tell what was happening.
Amazon probably has the official version of it. That dude probably took the official version off a DVD and put it on it and then upscaled it.
Yeah, because the one that's on YouTube is actually like in the correct ratio, like the film ratio.
Yeah, they have people with the video editing software. They can do that at home.
Well, I know I could do that, but but the thing about it is that I'm pretty sure that this has had, even though it's in the public domain, I think it has had like a DVD release.
Yeah.
So
some of this stuff they're going back and upscaling old stuff. They're even upscaling old porn from the 70s. You can upscale it using digital enhancement, and it looks HD. It's ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
AI, that shit fucking works.
Yeah. Phantom also says this film is probably the best Mary Warnov ever looked on camera. Super young and pretty. Yeah, she does look really good in this. I don't know how old she was in this. This was like, because I always remember her from like Eating Raoul, and she was in Chopping Mall too, I think, and like among a million other things. But I think this is the youngest I've ever seen her because it's like the oldest movie that I've seen her in. But I mean, it's interesting for that because there are some like, you know, well-known actors in it. And like I said, it's the same guy that wrote The Sentinel, so I thought that was really interesting. But I don't know. Like, I feel like if you're into early 70s stuff and want to see like a very early slasher like this, then I would recommend watching it. Just don't watch the one on Amazon Prime because it looks like ass. Just watch the one on YouTube. And like, you know, let me know what you think about it. Phantom said, had you ever heard of this film before reviewing it? I had heard of it, but I had never watched it.
I never even heard of it.
I don't think I had seen it.
I'm not a really big slasher guy.
I mean, it's not my favorite subgenre, but I don't know. Sometimes I'm in the mood for them, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, like a couple weeks ago, I was like, man, I'm in a slasher frame of mind. So I was like watching Slumber Party Massacre and like all those like old slashers that they have up on Amazon Prime, like from the 80s and shit. And I was watched like 3 or 4 of them in a row. So sometimes I get into that kind of mood. But normally, like I said, I'm normally like a kind of more of a haunted house, psychological horror, weird ass horror kind of thing. But sometimes slashers are kind of the thing. But yeah, so, you know, if it sounds like interesting to you, I didn't love it, but honestly, I probably will wait a year and then give it another watch, like in better quality, like to see if it looks better, like if I like it better that way, because you know it looked really shitty, and I feel like most of the time I was like squinting at it, like trying to see what was going on. You know what I mean? So there was that too. So after that was over, I was kind of scrolling through because, you know, after you watch some on Amazon Prime, it's like, hey, people also watch, here's all these other Christmas horror movies that we have. And I just picked this one at random. I think the only reason I picked this one is because, 1, it was an anthology, and I like those. And 2, Jeffrey Combs was in it.
Yeah.
So I picked this one because of Jeffrey Combs, and that is literally the only reason.
Yeah.
Other than it being an anthology.
He's great in it.
He's great in everything. I will watch that. I will watch him in anything. I love you, Jeffrey Combs.
He's aged wonderfully.
Yeah, because this movie, I mean, this movie's a couple years old. I think it's from 2019. Yeah. So it's a few years old, but he looks really good in this.
Yeah. I always picture him in his 30s, you know. But no, he's very distinguished. He held himself together. He looks great. Yeah. He's got to be close to 70 now, huh?
I would imagine. Yeah. I was trying to think too. I didn't look it up, but I'm not really sure how old he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, Burley said the same thing about the last movie, Silent Night, Bloody Night. Said this movie kind of lost me with the long-winded history segment. I basically checked out and had it on as background noise.
Yeah.
Warnoff does look good, though. Yeah, it almost kind of had a weird, like, documentary feel. Like, there'd be, like, a still photo and then, like, narration. Like, talking about stuff, which I thought was kind of odd. But, you know what I mean? It's a weird little movie. Like I said, I'd be willing to watch it again, because I was kind of interested enough to, but I want to see it in better quality. So this second one that I watched, I'm also going to say this one also not great. However, when I watched the first segment, because the wraparound, Jeffrey Combs is in the wraparound. So, because I was sitting there thinking, oh man, is he only going to be in it for like 5 minutes or whatever? But he actually has like a pretty big part. He's in the wraparound, so he has segments like between every segment. There are 4 main segments, and then he has like kind of his own story arc end, like at the end of it, like after the other stories. So when I got into the first segment, I was like, oh, what have I gotten myself into?
Yeah.
Like, this is not good.
Yeah, the acting wasn't good. The way it's shot, it looks like a television series. It doesn't really... It lacks style.
The first segment I was just kind of like, should I turn this off and, like, pick something else? I was like...
It's not as bad as a Danzig movie, but yeah. Close. Kind of like Glenn Danzig's movies.
But I stuck it out because I was like, I don't want to turn off Jeffrey Combs.
Yeah.
And I am happy to report that it actually got better. Like, the first segment is by far the worst one. The other ones are actually pretty decent. And it looked like they all had different directors. And it looked like they were all supposedly shot on digital. At least that's what I read. But to me, like, the first one is the only one that looks, like, very obviously cheap and digital. The rest of them looked more filmic to me. Yeah. Like, maybe that's just my imagination. And the acting was much better in the one. The third segment is by far the best one. The fourth one was pretty good, too. The second one was okay, and the first one is terrible. So, and the wraparound's great, because, like I said, Jeffrey Combs. But, you know what I mean? And here's the weird thing. So this movie is called Holiday Hell, and its little title card has little candy canes and holly and shit like that, and it has like little Christmassy music. But the first story is not holiday based. The only reference is that one of them halfway mentions that it's Valentine's Day, but they don't do anything Valentine's-y. You know what I mean? And then the second one is Hanukkah. And then the third one is Christmas, and then the fourth one is like Christmas/winter solstice. So I thought that was a little bit odd. I was like, if you're going to make a Christmas anthology, then the first one should have been Christmas. Because you could have made it set on Christmas. It wouldn't have been that much of a change. Because it's like it was barely Valentine's Day. Just somebody said, oh, I thought we were going to do something romantic for Valentine's. That was literally the only thing. You know, because there was another anthology movie that's just called Holidays that had ones for like every different holiday. You know what I mean? So if you're going to do that, go with that, because that was actually pretty good. But this one, I kind of feel like they should have gotten rid of the first segment and replaced it with another one that was Christmassy. You know what I mean? And that was better quality. Because, man, the first one was bad. It was, like, annoying as fuck. But so, the frame story of this one with Jeffrey Combs. Jeffrey Combs plays this guy. I don't think they ever give his name, but he's just called the shopkeeper. And he owns this weird...
curio shop.
Like curio shop, like antiquities and oddities and stuff like that, like skulls and whatnot. And so this girl comes in, whose name is Amelia, and it's kind of late, like it's the night before Christmas Eve. And she says, man, I know it's like the last minute and I know you're ready to close, but it's like I really, really have to get something for my sister, and she really loves this kind of weird shit and everything like that. And he's just like, oh man, it's like it's getting late, blah, blah, blah. But she's like, please, please, please. So he's like, okay, fine. So basically what he does is he's showing her like different objects in the store, and then he's telling her the story behind it. So that's how you get the stories. So the first one is this mask, and he said, yeah, this was found in like the remnants of a fire, like a house burned down and all these people died in the fire, but the fire didn't kill them, like, you know, leading for you to assume that they died before that. They were murdered. And then we go into the first segment, which is called Dollface. And it's all of these super, super obnoxious, like, younger people, like, in their 20s or something. I don't know what their relationship with each other is. They all just seem like college students that are trying to hook up with one another. and they're going to this house where a murder happened for some reason to hang out on Valentine's Day for some reason, even though it's like not Valentine-y at all. And so they get there, and basically what happens is somebody in like a baby doll dress and the mask starts killing them. The only good kill in this one that actually made me laugh was the one where that girl was like giving the dude a blowjob. Yeah. And then the doll face like comes up behind and just cuts the top of his head off. Yeah. So like the dick is still in her mouth, and then like she looks over, and then like the top of his head is just there on the ground. And that actually made me laugh. I was like, that was like the best part of that segment. But that was really the only part. The acting in this is atrocious. Yeah. It's like really. I don't
know how casting happened. This might have just been friends.
Maybe so. May
have been kind of satire. Maybe they were fucking kind of making fun of the slasher.
That's kind of what I thought, because there was one, especially the two female characters. I mean, well, they were about even female and male, but the two girls that were just like OMG, blah 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 blah, like you know what I mean? It's like using every stereotypical kind of thing like that. I'm like, that can't. I was like, that can't be real. It's like nobody talks like that. Yeah. So anymore. I thought that they were making a joke about it too, but it's like, I'm not. Maybe they were. But if they were, it wasn't.
It didn't come across.
It didn't come across that well. So I was like, oh, maybe she is really supposed to be like that. So I was like, nobody in real life talks like that. If they did, I would punch them in the face. But yeah. So that one, basically, everyone gets chopped up by this girl in the doll mask. House burns down. The end. It's like there's not really anything to it. So that was that. And then the next thing that Jeffrey Combs shows this girl in the shop is this little creepy doll that looks like a little rabbi. It's actually pretty cute. I thought it was kind of cute. And the best thing about this was actually an okay segment. The best thing about this is the title, which was "The Hand That Rocks the Dreidel," which that just like made me laugh. But I don't even think it said that like on the thing, but I was just like, when I found out that was the title.
Well, what is a dreidel, in case people don't know?
It's the little thing like on Hanukkah. It's that little thing that you spin with all the little Hebrew characters on it, and you get like little gold coins or whatever. All right. But it's like that was when I was in school, they taught you like the one token Hanukkah song, and it was the dreidel song. That was the only Hanukkah song they taught you. So it's like, it's like, we have a couple Jewish kids in here, so we have to do Hanukkah too. You know what I mean? So the hand that rocks the dreidel. So these kind of wealthy parents give their son, I think his name's Kevin, this doll. Like, and it's supposedly super old and super expensive and all this other stuff. So they give him this doll for his birthday, or no, it's for Hanukkah, duh. So they give it to him for Hanukkah. And so then they're going to go on some trip, like overseas, and they're leaving him with a babysitter. And he clearly does not like this babysitter. It's because she's going to be there for like 3 days or something. And then it turns out that when the babysitter gets there, she has this, again, very stereotypical white rapper kind of dude, where he's like, bitch, like that. Like he has the do-rag on his head, and I'm just like, oh my god, this can't be real. I think he even had like some silver teeth, and he might have. I think he had a grill. He had a grill. Yeah, but like the way he was talking, and it's like, bitch, what? Like he was like that. I'm like, oh my god, please stop it.
He went straight Vanilla Ice.
He did, yeah. It was like that. So, like I said, I feel like it might have been a joke because it was very.
Who were the
top.
stunters?
But oh yeah. Oh
Southwest stunters.
No, icy hot.
Icy hot stunters.
But yeah, but icy hot, like the stuff you rub on your. Because everyone kind of teased them about that. The icy hot stunters.
Go on Wang, WHANG exclamation point, and go put in icy hot stunters. Stunters.
AZ.
Yeah, it's the fucking cringiest fucking white boy rap.
I was like, that can't be real.
From the 90s.
Maybe it is.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure.
And it shows their MySpace
I thought
page.
He wasn't sure if it was real.
Copy of their MySpace page and shit back in the day.
I'm like, I've seen some cringy ass shit, but I've never seen anything fucking
Maximum cringe. They were supposed to be a band.
This wasn't quite as cringy as Icy Hot Stunt is, but it was along those same lines, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this girl, like, calls this boyfriend of hers, who, while she's talking on the phone with him, I love you, honey, blah, 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 he's getting a blowjob from some other chick in his car, because that's how he rolls. So their plan is they're actually going to rob this house You know what I mean? Because she's been babysitting this kid for a long time, and she's like, man, they have all this expensive shit in here. I mean, it doesn't look like they have any expensive shit in there, really, but you know what I mean. So she's like, so we're going to do that, and she's going to lock the kid in the room because she hates this kid, and, you know, and they're going to take all this stuff. So Kevin, the kid, finds out about this and is basically like saying to the doll, it's like, man, you can't do anything, blah, blah, blah. But then he finds this little scroll, of course, in the box with the doll that basically has like a little poem on it that you say, and, you know, obviously the doll comes to life and will help you fuck up your enemies. And so that's basically what happens, is that although the doll technically only kills the girl, because the girl actually accidentally kills her boyfriend when he comes in and he kind of like sneaks up on her, and she's been kind of creeping around the house because she thinks she hears something, and she turns around and like stabs him in the neck. So that was on her. That was her fault. So the doll didn't do that, but the doll does actually end up killing her. And because I was sitting there thinking, man, how's this kid gonna explain these two fucking dead people like in the mansion? And he just asked the doll to clean it up. The doll cleaned it up. They don't show him doing it because it's like, how could a little bitty rabbi doll, like put two bodies in a car and like drive the car presumably to somewhere where it's just, I'm not gonna think about it too hard.
He's got that Jewish magic.
Yeah, I guess so.
It comes from that book
it's the Kabbalah.
The Kabbalah, yeah.
I guess.
Kabbalah magic.
Yeah, he just used Kabbalah magic to woo the bodies like into the car. Because I was like, wow, that's handy. Because I was like worried, what's the kid gonna do? You know, like with these big fucking dead bodies or anything. So that's basically how that was, just like killer doll. I did kind of like the little doll though. He looked kind of cool. They didn't really show him like moving around too much because, like I said, this is pretty low budget.
I think it's a rip-off of the Zindi doll.
That's why, the Zuni doll.
Zuni doll.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. They were kind of going for that sort of thing. But like I said, some of the acting in this, not so much. The kid was fine. The babysitter girl was fine. The parents were fine. It was mostly just the boyfriend that I couldn't figure out if he was doing that on purpose, or like if he was being funny, or I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. It was good to see the same thing with like the first segment. However,
I kind of think it was just bad writing, that they were just kind of like shoehorning stereotypical characters in there.
Maybe.
Thinking that this will be funny, people will respond to it, and it's a lot of that shit's kind of played out, and it just kind of comes off as tacky.
Yeah, because I'm sitting there going, nobody acts like that in real life. Like, knock it off.
And it's kind of not contemporary. There are fucking people, there are people that have certain ways that are around today that you could be mocking. Instead of mocking Vanilla Ice from fucking 1991, you know? Because that's really what they're talking about.
It's sort of, yeah.
Go watch a Vanilla Ice movie. That one.
Oh, God.
I dare you to see if you can fucking
my muscles hurt from cringing.
Yeah.
Through that whole movie. And I didn't even watch it unassisted. I watched the Riff Tracks version.
Yeah, which
helps a lot.
Helps it, yeah.
Don't watch it like without Riff Tracks. You need Riff Tracks. Right. Like coming along with you and holding your hand
without Riff Tracks.
Because it's a great Riff Tracks episode because they have so much to work with.
Yeah.
But man, I don't envy them having to sit, because they usually sit through those a few times, like to write all the jokes and stuff. And I was like, man, they probably had to watch this shit like 8 times.
White boy rap is cringe.
Wow. As fuck. That is like what, and like he's like the biggest badass at everything, and I can't stand. There were a lot of movies out like that, like in the 90s. I feel like
I've heard a lot of brothers tell me that they thought Vanilla Ice is actually the best rapper, you know, and he does sound pretty good. I'll give him that, and his writing is kind of good. It just doesn't. It's just hard to set the standard from, you know, that I grew up with, you know, fucking Public Enemy, you know, that Yo Bum Rush the Show album came out, and then it got more and more kind of fucking advanced, and I like the old gangster rap.
Yeah, I mean that's
from the '90s,
much
late
better.
'80s, very late '80s. Yeah, it was more authentic.
Yeah. It's just kind of hard to feel like somebody's from the streets or something when they're just from some suburb in Van Nuys or something.
By the time the fucking late 90s were coming around, though, to me, I thought rap sounded very corporate. I could tell that big money powers were behind it.
Well, because
it was cleaned up. It wasn't homemade.
It was the same thing that happened with punk. I mean, you know, everything got, you know, punk used to be like kind of scuzzy and garbagey and like sounded kind of like shit.
Yeah, punk rock and rap came up at the same time, the same scene. Those people knew each other.
They did, and there was some crossover, but it's just kind of like when it got popular, then, you know, money started getting behind it, and it was all slick, and it wasn't really the same anymore.
Not quite the same.
Not really the same. So that's when you got like pop punk kind of stuff with Blink 182 and all that kind of crap.
Yeah, fucking Green Day.
Yeah. Although I will go to bat for the first Green Day album, which I think was called Kerplunk, was actually pretty good.
Actually, John Lydon, also known as Johnny Rotten, who helped invent punk rock music, he said he kind of made fun of Green Day. He goes, but you know what? They sound great. Says they sound really good.
Yeah, they're not a bad band, but I would give them less grief than like some of the other ones. You know what I mean? So, but it's kind of the same thing that happened. Now, okay, so the third segment of this, easily the best one. Even though you know where it's going, like it's not any surprise or anything, but the acting in this was the best. The story behind this was the best. It's a Killer Santa type of thing, sort of, but you know. So it's basically this guy who's, I think his name's Tom, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. And he's kind of this sad sack, and he works at this office. I think it's like a pharmaceutical company. And he wanted this big promotion, and he didn't get it. No, his name's Chris. His rival's name is Tom. Okay. So that's why, because I was like, I know somebody is Tom in this movie. But he doesn't get this promotion, and his rival Tom gets it instead. And his boss calls him in and is like, yeah, you know, Chris, you're pretty cool and everything, but, you know, Tom's a big go-getter, and it's like, you need to do better and all this other kind of shit. And also, his wife seems to, like, actively fucking hate him because he's, like, not, you know, not stepping up, and she doesn't want to have sex with him and all this other kind of stuff, and she's just constantly belittling him because he's getting fat and all this other kind of shit. So she's a real twat. And so this Christmas party is coming up, and he's going to go to it, and he dresses up as Santa to go to it. Meanwhile, his pharmaceutical company, like his boss, is like, oh, hey, here's our new product. You know, why don't you try it out? Like, but I'm sure they don't do it. A pharmaceutical company, I would hope not. Because this shit is like, he said, man, I took this and took 2 shots of Jack or something like that, and I just, like, stared at a TV for 3 hours, and I had the best time of my life or something like that. So it's like the guy's like, okay, so I'll take some. Now, the guy... Chris is also on the wagon, like he's a recovering alcoholic, and he hasn't had a drink in a year. So he goes to this Christmas party, he's playing Santa, and then he sees that his wife and his rival, Tom, are kind of getting a little flirty, and then, you know, obviously, he goes and finds them, and they're fucking, like, in the back office somewhere. And he's just like, well, fuck this. So he leaves, and then he goes to a bar and gets blackout drunk, pees on the floor, the whole deal, and then he takes some of those pills and goes on a murderous rampage, which is a lot of fun. Like, and he uses like the funniest thing was when he goes in to Tom, who is snorting coke off a woman's naked breasts, as one does.
That's the best way.
It's yeah. That's the only way it works good. And
at least in the movies.
Yeah. or an ass works too.
Yeah, the little crack, where the crack reaches the base of the fucking spine. I see him snort from there too in the movies. Thing is that it'd stick. It'd stick to her, so you'd be wasting a bunch of it.
That's kind of what I think. It's like there's practical concerns.
There's practical concerns.
You know what I mean? It's like that shit's not cheap. It's like let's not have half of it like stuck to her sweaty ass. You know?
They're trying to, you know.
It's like, look how degenerate these people are.
Yeah, that's something. That's something some fucking rich overweight loser with his fucking 2 fucking $6,000 escorts does on the yacht.
Yeah,
he'll do that with them. And then, here, unbeknownst to him, the escorts just pretended to snort it. They actually blew out. Yeah. Blew the shit everywhere.
Because they're like, I'm not going to snort around this dude, no.
They won't take drugs with the client.
So he goes... he actually kills the Tom dude with a nail gun because he said, you nail my wife, I'm going to nail... And he has the nail gun and he does, like, right in his crotch. Like, and he said something about... Because he's referring to something back that he said earlier about something about holes. So he puts, like, 8 holes... Oh, I guess it was golf. 18 holes or something like that. So he just like puts a bunch of nails in his dick, which is super funny. But like he uses like all these different tools. He goes to the hardware store and just basically kills everybody. And ends up, I guess he kills his wife too at the end. But he has a daughter, but I guess he's okay. She's okay. But they don't show her again. But so that one, like I said, that one, it's very straightforward. It's basically like, you know, a guy goes nutsoid like in a Santa suit and kills people, but the acting is really good. It's just super fun. It's super bloody. It's not trying to be anything, you know, crazy or anything like that. It's just like a solid horror story. So that was like easily the best one. I think it was called Christmas Carnage, I think that's what it's called. And then the last one actually ends up tying back in with Amelia, the girl who is in the shop with Jeffrey Combs. And it has to do with this girl that comes to this really weird, like, small town. It's a little bit... I thought they were trying to do, like, a Lovecraftian vibe. Because the woman in it is named Lavinia. And I was like, that's like Lovecraftian. And it's kind of like a New England town where everyone's a weirdo and they're all kind of staring at you funny. But it ends up not really being that. It's kind of more like a solstice, like witch cult type of situation. But it's basically like these two weirdos, and this girl comes to this town for whatever reason, and she rents a room from these weirdos, and they are planning on sacrificing her so they can have a baby, like sacrificing her to the goddess, you know what I mean, like as an exchange. So, which, you know, you don't know. But then it turns out that the baby she had was Amelia. So there's this whole thing at the end with the wraparound where Amelia is like, you know, Jeffrey Combs, you killed my twin sister, and I've been watching you all this time. And she brings her goth cult there, and they bring the sister back from the dead.
The goths were actually fucking authentic, though.
They did look,
authentic.
They did look pretty good.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny because
they were either real goths or a real goth dressed them up. I think they were real goths.
Yeah, I thought it was funny because as soon as I saw, because he turns around and he sees Amelia and then all these goths behind her, and I'm just like, oh, Sheena's in a goth gang.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? That was the first thing I thought. I was singing it in my head. But yeah, so they bring the sister back, and she's kind of fucked up, and she ends up killing Jeffrey Combs. Because Jeffrey Combs is actually going to kill Amelia for this ring that she has. Because there's a whole thing about this ring, and it has something to do with this cult that tied in with the last story. So that story was actually pretty good, too. So as anthologies go, because whenever you have an anthology like this, like a horror anthology, there's usually like one really good one and then like some decent ones, and then there's one that's kind of shitty. I kind of feel like this one had a great one, a couple pretty good ones, and a terrible one. And then like the wraparound, which was also good, mostly because Jeffrey Combs was in it. I don't know if I would have watched this if Jeffrey Combs wasn't in it. But I did like...
I think he was the draw.
He
was there to class up the joint.
Yeah, because he's obviously like the biggest star in this.
Yeah.
Although the dude that played Chris in the third one, I can't remember that actor's name, but I've seen him in a bunch of other stuff, and he always plays characters like that. Like he always plays kind of overweight loser, sad sack kind of characters, and he's really good at it. So he was great too. I think those two were like the standout. Everyone else was like middling to awful.
I'd have to agree.
Like all the other acting.
I think overall this is just mediocre.
Yeah, it's not
really
great.
The only thing that saved it from being fucked up, Combs.
Yeah.
And the Combs story is okay, but just Combs doesn't phone shit in. He's gonna fucking do a performance, you know. And he just motherfucker's got style, man. Jeffrey.
Like I said, I'll watch
Jeffrey.
Anything with him in it. He's awesome.
He was hugely important to Star Trek too. People don't realize all the cool shit that Combs did. And fucking Star Trek Enterprise, which a lot of people didn't like Star Trek. You're fucking wrong. Go back and watch that shit. Had two of the best mirror episodes of all the Star Treks at the very end of it. And Combs was in there playing fucking Shran, an Andorian. There should have been a whole series about Shran.
I would watch that.
Yeah. Now, what I found out, though, is what was going to happen in the next season, but it got canceled. Is that Shran, you know, he lost his... He was going to lose his ship, his command of the Andorian Guard. What was it? I forgot what the name of what guard it was. And Archer was going to hire him on as an advisor, and he'd be on the crew, so he'd have been a regular. That would have been great.
That'd have been awesome.
Yeah, because he was a heroic little dude. Because the Andorians were small.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Jeffrey Combs very big. Maybe 5'6".
Yeah, I don't know. I have to look it up. I never really noticed like how tall he was. I don't notice people's heights unless it's like freakish one way or the other.
Looking at him in Star Trek, he was probably about 5'6", 5'5", 5'6", maybe 5'7", maybe.
All right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, I just picked this one because Jeffrey Combs was in it, and I like anthologies. Like I like horror anthologies. This one, I think it's worth watching for Jeffrey Combs and for the third segment. The other segments were, like, other than the first one, which was shit, the other two were good, but I don't think they were worth watching the movie for. But Jeffrey Combs and the third segment, I think, are good enough to justify. Like, just kind of skip through the other ones, I guess. And I'm still kind of mad that the first one didn't have anything to do with Christmas. Like, if you're going to do holidays, like, you know, that's cool they had a Hanukkah one in there. You know, you don't see that much. And the other two were were Christmas. But then the first one wasn't even a holiday, except, Valentine's Day, somebody mentioned. But it wasn't didn't have anything to do with Valentine's Day either. So it's just kind of like, okay, I don't know. Get some. I don't really like, if you're gonna do an anthology, like commit to the bit, like, you know, stick to the theme. Which is kind of why I didn't like some of the... Because remember when I did that big review of all the VHS movies?
Yeah.
I think the one that I didn't like, which was viral, was because it didn't really stick to... The reason I liked the old ones is because they stuck to the trope. These are like some fucked up videotapes we found, and then it all kind of looked the same, even though it was different directors. It kind of had a cohesiveness to it. And so if you're going to do an anthology, I feel like it's better to be cohesive like that. And I tend to prefer ones that don't just do story. I like ones that are like Trick or Treat, that are kind of all interconnected stories. And A Christmas Horror Story, the one with William Shatner, that's kind of like that too, because some of the stories like overlap. And I think that's kind of a better way to do it. To just kind of like in one town and all this stuff is happening like at the same time, but like different shit is happening. And I think that works out better because it kind of seems more like a cohesive movie. But yeah, so this is also on Amazon Prime for free. It's not great, but if you really like Jeffrey Combs like I do,
if you're a Combs fan,
then you might want to watch it. Like I said, just skip through a couple of the shit here, like segments to the third one, which is the best one. And the fourth one's pretty good too, so you know what I mean. But yeah, I'm just saying, if you've seen all the other ones and you want a different one to watch, and like I said, this one's not that old. It's from 2019. All right, so are you ready to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want another sausage sandwich?
Man, you're saying
all talking about y'all got dirty minds.
Well, just the way you said it. The way you said it out of nowhere. Usually, you want some sausage? Yeah, I want some sausage.
I'm hungry.
Yeah, I am too a little bit. We did. Yeah, they're actual sausages. We had some earlier. They were actually really good.
Yeah, I know how to fuck with you, though.
I know. All right, so we are going to wrap up this Christmas double feature. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it, and we will be back again on Christmas Day at the usual time of 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So hopefully you guys can join us. We're just going to do like a Christmas sidetrack show. I didn't really want to do any particular research or a particular topic because, you know, it's the holidays and I just wanted to slack. So hopefully you'll indulge me. But yeah, we definitely are doing a live stream on Christmas night. So hopefully you guys can join us for that. Have a good rest of your evening. Have a good Christmas Eve and a good Christmas morning, you guys. And we'll see you again on Wednesday night. Good night.